Right. Good morning, everyone. We're going to go back a little bit for those who are here in person because we got cut off at the end. So remember, we are discussing Rav and Shmuel, this discussion about when there is access by going up and access by going down. We had Shmuel who said that since it's easier to go down than to go up, then the party who is going down, they're the ones who have access, and therefore they're the ones who have usage, and therefore that property that is shared property but is accessible from the people on the top who are only going down, it belongs to them, and the people who are going up, it does not belong to them. Whereas Rav said no, going down, going up, if as long as they're equal, and therefore since they have equal access and they do not make an eruv, it's going to be a forbidden space. The Gemara tried to bring a proof from a brisa that spoke about a wall that was 20 tefachim high. Okay, and as Adam pointed out right after the class, it was 20 and a tiny fraction, as you'll see why in a second, but it's not exactly 20, it's a little bit more than 20. And the brisa said those who were above, the people above 10, the people coming from above 10 tvachim, they could use the space above 10 tvachim. The people who have and the brisa, and we interpreted the brisa to mean that we have a little gzustra, a little ledge sticking out. And what the brisa was telling us is that the ledge that is above 10 tefachim belongs to people at the top. The ledge that's below 10 tefachim belongs to people at the bottom. The ledge that is in between belongs to nobody. It is aser because it's equidistant between the both of them. And even though one party is going down, one party is going up, since Rav's ruling is that in such a case it's going to be aser. Now that's the reason we have to say it's 20 and a bit, because if it was exactly 20, then the space in between would actually be partially would be in between, for the lower people, and partially be for the people above. So it has to be something which is existent right between the 10 above and between the 10 below. And the Gemara is basically telling it to Zasser, which would be a proof to Rav. So the Gemara, Amar Rav Nachman, the last lines in 84a3, Amar Rav Nachman, no, Hacha bekosel tisha asar askinan beziv ziyozim mimenu. We're talking about a case where the wall is 19 tvachim high, and you have the ledge sticking out, so there is no middle. So lamatami asar lezeb pasach lezeb shilshol. If it is below 10 tvachim, then it's accessible to the person then below. Because for them it's open to them, because as long as it's anything within 10 of your space, that's not called going up, that's just called regular. So the people who are, again, if it's 19, then if you're on the bottom 10 tvachim, then the person on the bottom gets access to it because it's within 10 tvachim of their space, and the person above, they have to go down because it's higher than 10 tvachim. And if it's above, the ledge is above 10 tvachim, then, and the people above, for them, since it's less than 10 tvachim, it's open to them, right? We consider that to be open to them, even though they have to stretch a little bit, but since it's within 10 tvachim, to them it's open. And the people below, since they have to go above 10 tvachim, therefore they don't have access to it. But the inference of a case in between does not exist, because it's talking about a case with 19 tvachim. Okay, there's nothing, fine. 84b1. Pay Dalet Amabez. Here we go. So, Tashma. Now we're going to we're continuing this conversation, continuing this debate. We're going to wrap that debate up today, but we try to bring another proof from the following interesting case. Shtei gzustraos zo lemalamizo. You have two balconies which extend over a body of water, okay? And one is higher than the other, not directly above one another. I'll draw a picture in a second. Asu le'elyona velo asu le'tachtona. Okay, if the residents of the balconies made a partition for the upper balcony, but did not make one for the lower balcony. Okay? So shtei masuras ad she'arvu. They're both going to be prohibited until they make a joint eruv. So what's the case? The case is like this. You have balconies. You have balconies. These are your houses. Okay, everyone fine. And basically you have a balcony over here. You have a balcony over here, and there's water over here. Okay, this is in Venice or whatever. And basically they go ahead and they make a partition going down over here. Okay, and both people want to use this thing. Okay, let me explain for a second. Bottom line is they want to draw water. If you remember back in the day, we spoke about the drawing water. There are certain leniencies allowing people to draw water. Drawing water is very important. So Chazal came along, even though this goes into a carmelis, the water outside. I hope this, right? Yeah, you see what's going on. Basically, they have doors on the other side. Okay, here's they have the door over here, so they could, they come out of their house. They have a door over here, and these are open.
So the balconies are connect to them. They have to connect to the house, or it won't stay.
Right? Sorry.
Yeah. So your upper balcony would go a little bit more to the left, and the lower balcony would go a little bit more to the right. So it would touch the walls of the.
This is sticking out. I have no idea how to do this with 3G, right?
Let me explain what I mean.
Okay, here we go. We got a guest. Welcome. Okay.
I mean, you have these things here, but they have to be connected somewhere because they can't be.
No, there's their little thing holding them up.
Right. Are they like that?
Why?
So they got to stay up somehow.
Yeah, no, there's little stuff holding them up.
How?
What do you mean?
This is air.
Brackets.
Yeah, whatever, like poles,
Okay,
sticks,
brackets.
things.
Right. Yeah, they're brackets. You're right. They're brackets for the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's attached. It's not floating in the air. It's not floating in the air. Okay, perfect. Okay, yeah, so basically this is the wall. This is the back wall of a house, right? And the back wall of the house opens up into water. Yeah? So basically these guys, basically this is their door, they can access it. Now they want to draw water. Now they shouldn't be able to draw water because it's a Carmelist, it's outside of their space. How are they allowed to do so? So if you remember, Chazal came along and said if you make these partitions for Tzfachim, then we have a halacha which is, oh man, we're done with this one, okay? We have the halacha which is that we treat it going down, right? And basically, fine. And therefore, we treat it as if there's a wall going all the way down. That's the halacha in general. But now over here, so we have a person up here, we have a person over here. They both want to use this thing. So this person just lowers it down, lowers his bucket down. Fantastic, right? Here's their bucket. But this guy wants to use it. So what do you have to do? He has to throw his bucket over here and then lower his bucket. So this person is just going down. This person is going up. Right? And so what do you see? What does the Mishnah tell us? The Mishnah tells us, Shteim Asurim, Asuros Achi Arvu. They're both Asur, right? According to Shmuel, Mr. Guy on the top should be the one who's allowed to use it. Why? Because it's just going down, right? But according to Rav, even though the first guy's going up and the other guy's going down, it's still Asur until they make an Eruv, right? So what do you see? This would seem to be a proof to Rav's position. Yeah? Make sense? So Amarav Ada Barahava Bivan B'nei Tachtona Derech Al Yon Lamalos. So Gemara says, no, you missed a detail. The reason that this is Asur is because I made a mistake when I drew this, is because he's not throwing his rope, over here. He's not a cowboy. What he's doing is he has a ladder. And therefore, he has equal access. So when these guys go up, they're also going to be lowering it. And both of them lower it, and no one's actually throwing it up. Right? And therefore it's absolutely equal. They have a joint ladder over here which joins the two of them together. And therefore when these people, the people below, are lowering their buckets, these people are lowering a bucket, these people are lowering a bucket, no one's actually throwing it up, and that's why it's usher, because they're both lowering it, and therefore this is not a proof to Rav's position. Yeah? Sorry? They could both lower, but the problem is that since they're both lowering it, and they didn't make an Eruv, they therefore are able to equally usher it on each other. In other words, in a scenario where right? In other words, we're talking about a case where these two people did not join together in an Eruv. These people are their own house, these people are their own house. Had they made an Eruv, no problem. But here they didn't make an Eruv. So the question is, the reason that they can't both lower is because how are they allowed to use this shared space? It's shared space.
It's a courtyard.
It's a courtyard. It's a shared space. It's no different than if two homes open up into a courtyard, right? And if they didn't make an Eruv, they're not allowed to use it. So the reason they're not allowed to use it over here is because since they have equal accessibility to it, and they did not make an Eruv, therefore they're both not allowed to use it. Had they made an Eruv, they would be allowed to both lower it. Okay. I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. I've been practicing all morning. Okay. So Amar. Okay, Abaye Amar, second column. Abaye gives another answer. Kigon de kaimen b'soch hasar dadadi. We're talking about a case where they're within 10 tefachim of each other. Okay, and therefore they're not separated. In other words, we assumed that they were separated, right? We assumed that this was going to be that, right? The whole discussion of Rav and Shmuel till now was the scenarios where. Let's just get rid of this. Okay, where there's 10 tefachim below, it's 10 tefachim, there's 10 tefachim between people on the top and people on below. That was all the cases. But now he's saying that the distance over here, right, is only 8 tefachim, let's call it, okay? Can't make an 8 for the life of me, okay? 8 tefachim, right? And therefore, once it's a smaller distance, this is the first time we have this idea. Abai comes along and says, once it's a smaller distance, then the whole concept of above, below doesn't really make a difference, since 8 tefachim is just not a significant distance of space. Therefore, it's true. Meaning, Shmuel would tell you, let's say, that no, this guy going down, that's actually easier. This guy going up is harder. What Abai is coming along to tell you is that even Shmuel would agree that a scenario where that although this guy is going down and this guy does still have to throw his bucket up, it doesn't matter, because since it's such a small space, it's only 8 tefachim, that's not considered substantial enough. Yeah?
Why is it the vertical distance and not the horizontal distance?
What?
Yeah, but they're like, these are.
Why isn't it this way instead of this way?
Well, let's. First of all, it doesn't really matter. Meaning, let's say you have I drew the picture over here. Let's say the wall goes over here, right? Meaning let's say there is no vertical distance. There is only horizontal. Sorry, there's no horizontal distance, only vertical distance, or it's a minimal one.
But in this case, you have a vertical and horizontal.
Yeah, so maybe you would add that. It could be they do add that. It's inconsequential to this conversation. In other words, you're right, maybe they would. But the point that we're saying is that since they are so close to each other, this is not considered meaningful going up. Right? And therefore, they're both going to be usher, not because, and theoretically, again, according to Shmuel would say, if this was 10 tvachim, then granted, these people would be the ones to use, these people not. But since it's so close,
Let's say your distance is 12 tvachim, but the other one is only 3 tvachim.
No, but even if this is 3 tvachim across, you would still need to go up before going down.
So then
these guys, according
the
to
relevant distance is the vertical distance, is what you're saying.
You're confusing me. Sorry, just help me out here. What do you mean?
I can draw another picture.
Okay, we're back. Sorry, what were you gonna ask?
Even 500 years ago, they're still usually, the architect would still make them even.
Oh, even?
Yeah. Like they're not.
Oh, not necessarily. Okay. Yeah, I mean, could be. I mean, we come up with different scenarios where it's not that way. It wouldn't be. It's inconsequential. I mean, in theory, but we're going to talk about extreme cases, and from there we can infer different things. I mean, you could ask. Well, we're not going to ask an architectural question like, "Hey, what was the guy thinking when they made this?"
I would have more of a problem with them being one on top of the other, and then trying to lower the bucket. And then...
Well, that would be pretty hard to do, right? So, but let's wait. Let's go with the case. We'll go with the case, even though we could ask like, "What in the world were they thinking building it?" They made it this way.
Let's say this distance is 18, but if you were to draw a vector from here,
yeah,
this distance is only 3.
Yeah, but
So
still they'd
now
have to
like
go
you said-
up before.
He said
What's-
vector.
Sorry.
Okay, we'd still have to go up.
Yeah, well, that's the question. The question is the relevant thing is this one and not this one. Yeah.
No, but even if this is relevant, meaning, but you can't ignore the going up over here,
Right.
which is
The 18 is the going up, so this is the relevant distance.
this is but it doesn't mean this is irrelevant. Yes,
Well, this is irrelevant because it's got to go up. He's got
correct.
18 in the,
Correct. Okay, fine. Yes. All I'm saying is yeah. No. Okay, fine. Good. Okay, so let's see it again. So Baya Amar Kigon Dekaim Chasar Dahadadi. Since they are within 10 tvachim of each other, it does not matter if you're going up or down. Even meaning according to Shmuel, so going down is the ikr, is the main thing. It doesn't matter over here. V'lomi Ba'ika Amar, and what the way to read the brisa is to say this, but not only this. Meaning Lomi Bayas La Tachton of La Saloliano Dasiri. It's for sure in a case where they made a partition for the lower balcony, but did not make one for the upper balcony, that they're prohibited. Why? Okay, since they're within 10 tvachim, they both asr on one another. In other words, for sure in a case where let's ignore all this. Okay, and they went ahead and here's your people over here, here's your people over here, and they made one over here. So for sure in this case it's asr. Again, over here we're talking about the case they're within 8 tvachim of one another. 8 tvachim. Over here, for sure, they're going to be asr because these guys go down. These guys are equal distance, and they're within 8 tvachim of one another. It's very easy for everyone to reach one another. For sure, in that case, and no one's allowed to use anything since they didn't make an erev. Even a situation where they made a partition for the upper one, but they did not make one for the lower one. So, but even in a case where they did not make one over here, but they made one over here, right? And so this you would say, this guy's much easier, this guy's much harder, right? So maybe you would think that the upper guy is allowed to use it, again, according to Shmuel. Okay, we should give it to the upper people, because for them it's easier than this person who has to go up and then go down. Where it says 84b, no, Kamash Bland, Kavan to be go, Asar Kaiman, Asar Nadadi. We're going to say that since it's within 10 tvachim, the notion of even going up is not really a thing. In other words, going up is only really going down only really begins to be a discussion if it's above 10 tvachim. That's what Abai is Chiddush. Abai is saying that this case, even the Shmuel, who normally holds going down, is the main thing, right? But over here, since it's 8 tvachim, not 10 tvachim, this is not considered going up, and therefore it's considered equal usage for both of them. Even though this guy is the one going down and this guy is the one going up, right? Going up, right? Everyone would agree, let's start very basic. Everyone would say, this is not very hard to go like this, right? When we're talking about going like this, that's a whole different story, right? And so basically, right, that's what he means. Up to 10 tvachim, we don't consider that to be even going up. And therefore, Shmuel would say, this case, even though this guy's easier technically because it's going down and this person's going up, this going upness is not really a going upness. It's not a factor. And that's not a word.
This really is only
Correct. If it's going to be if it's going to be one on top of the other, I'm not sure how they'd have their buckets. They'd have.
When the person, then when it's above 10 Tvachim, wouldn't it be like the person above?
Yeah, if there's 10 Tvachim, then exactly. Then Shmuel would say, since it's above 10 Tvachim, this guy goes down, this guy goes up. It's going to be awarded to this person and not to this person.
So if the other person is like dropping his bucket and they're one on top of each other and it's more than 10 Tvachim, then the person dropping his bucket, the other person below him can't take the bucket as he's pulling it up and use it because it's us.
Well, if they both are, meaning you're talking a scenario, a different scenario. Meaning you're talking a scenario where you have two people, one on top of the other. They're both dropping buckets. We're trying to talk about a case where one person's going up and one person's going down, right? In this case, right, where they want to go ahead and drop buckets, and they're both dropping buckets through this same hole, right? They both have whatever. They both basically are using the same hole. That would not be relevant to our conversation. In this case, that would be a shared hole of two people lowering it. It would both be usher. That would for sure both be usher because they're both lowering it. The novelty over here, we're getting into a lot of lines. Novelty over here is that even though this person is going up, right? In this case, if they're above each other, if they have good architecture, if architecture is approved by our shir, then this case would certainly be completely usher because they're both going down. It's the novelty is this case, they're still both going to be usher, even though this guy's going up and this guy's going down. Since it's within 8 tvachim, that's the novelty over here. Okay, let's go further. So Kiha de Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel Gag Hasamach L'Rishus Harabim. Okay, a little bit of a funny case. Okay, fine. So you have a case. If you look at the picture in 15, you see the diagram. Everyone's in art school, yeah. The diagram I'm not going to draw. This too complicated. But you have a roof which is next to Rishus Harabim. Okay, and next. So let's see. You have. Okay, so you have people living up above, okay? You see that Bnei Aliyah, people on the second story. And then you have a merpeset, you have an open space, okay? And then you have a lower space, okay? And then that lower space opens up directly into the public domain. You with me? Okay? You see the picture? So the Gemara says, it needs a permanent ladder to make it that the lowest space, meaning the gated in space over there, you see that gated in space, that space is not going to be usher because of the usage of the Rishus Harabim. In other words, that middle space, the last space, the space that's gated in, on the one hand, it is easily accessible to the people in the public domain, and at the same time, it's accessible to the people on the mirpeset, on that gallery or the porch, patio, whatever, the porch. So it would technically be usher. The people who live on the bottom, the bottom house don't have access to it. The people in the top house have the ones who have access. The bottom house, they're just walking on top of their heads.
Yeah, but
the bottom house don't have access, right? So the people on top have access to that space, and the people in Rishus Harabim have access to that space. So the Mishnah said, the Brisa said, Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel says that the only way that the people up above are allowed to use it is if there is a sulam kavua, a permanent ladder leading from the port, that mirpeset down to that lower rooftop space is only going to be allowed if there's a permanent ladder connecting the top part to the bottom part. Right? Sulam kavua in, sulam arai low. But if there is a temporary ladder, if you just throw a bunch of slats together, then no. Then since they both have access, it's going to be forbidden for everyone to use. Right? Because the Rishus Harabim, that is people in Rishus Harabim, that would cause it to be usher. They're basically able to access it from Rishus Harabim, and therefore it's going to be usher. So Gemara says, my taima, what's the reason? And is going to try to support Abaya's point that he just made before. La mishum dekema debesocha asar dadadi kami asar nadadi. Is it not because since even though the people on top are going down and the people below are going up, right? The people above are going down that ladder. The people below are going up a ladder. But since, and Shmuel would normally say that when you go down a ladder, then that's easier to access than going up, right? Because it's a general rule of going up versus going down. So Shmuel should say it's permitted. It's going to be given to the people on top all the time. And so why does the Brisa say that it has to have a permanent, why does Rav Nachman say it has to have a permanent ladder to allow for it, but otherwise it would be asur? Clearly, we want to infer from here, Abai wants to infer from here, that since it's within 10 tvachim of one another, in other words, the gap between the Rishus Harabim bottom and the top is less than 10 tvachim, going up or going down is irrelevant. It's immaterial. Right? Another right. You see the basic the attempted proof over here is that the Bryce that Rav Nachman said only when there's a strong ladder, a very permanent looking ladder, is it going to allow the people on top to be considered the ones who are really attached to that gated in area. Otherwise, if that ladder was not embedded into that space, it was just like a temporary ladder, then one would be going down, one would be going up, and we'd say it would be usher between. It would be everyone would be usher. Why? Because since it's within 10 tefachim, we disregard the going up or going down. So Gemara says no. I'm asking our Papa says no. Okay, but maybe the reason it's going to be usher is actually because the people down below have easier access due to the fact that it's something which they are constantly, meaning they have throughout the week, they're constantly putting their stuff there, their hats and their scarves, whenever they want to adjust themselves, they put things down there, and therefore it's completely easy to be used, okay? And therefore, that's the reason it's going to be usher. You need to do something very strong to override that. You need to have an embedded ladder to override that, because otherwise the people down below are using it so easily, or so commonly, I should say, because they're always putting their stuff there, and that's why you need to have something permanent, like a permanent ladder to override it. But otherwise, don't bring me an inference, says our Papa, because really there's not a typical case where one is going up and one is going down. It's a very particular case where the people on the bottom are using it in a very easy fashion, and that's why it override the going downness of the top people, okay? But because they're using it very easily, that's why you need to have the ladder. But in a regular case where it's equal, some going up, some going down, then you would not be able to bring this proof. Okay? I'm Rav Yehuda Shmuel. Last line 84b2. Right now we're starting Pei Hey Amud Aleph. Bor shebein shtei chateros. Let's have a pit between two courtyards. Okay? New case. Mufleges mikosel zeraba. Mikosel zeraba. Just look at the picture. And sometimes draw a new picture. Right? Basically, you have people living. You have this little gap between two houses, but they're completely walled in. In other words, you see there's a 4 tefach wall on each side of each house. You see that? You see there's a wall, a proper wall. So really the space in between, in other words, until now we've talked about cases which are kind of open to both spaces. This is not open to both spaces, right? And not only is it not open, but there is a gap of 4 tefachim between their homes, the wall, and the pit. And what that allows for is that no one has easier access to the next. It's completely separate from both of them. It's a private domain in the middle, which has a pit. Okay, so fine. So bottom line is, what should be the halacha? If they want to draw water from this middle space, okay, so they will not aser one another. They're not going to aser one another because they're both distant from it, and it's not open to one another because they have walls on both sides, and no one's closer to that next because it's 4 tefachim away, and therefore really they don't aser one another. The problem is that it's not in their domain. The problem is that it's not in the domain. So how do you get it? So in general, when we have this general rule, we are lenient when it comes to water. When it comes to drawing water, we want to give people access to water. So the Gemara says, so we have a special leniency. Zemotzi ziz kolshu mamale. What you're allowed to do is place a slat, some line. Imagine there was like a little stick sticking out from each of their windows, a little stick, and then they're allowed to draw water. And the other one's allowed to put a little stick out and draw from his own place. Yehuda says, not only a stick, but even a reed, something even smaller. What's this all about? What it's all about is basically, again, it's a leniency for water drawing, and we allow this to happen because of the fact that the stick over here is basically a reminder that if there was a shared space, that actually you have to go ahead and put up an Eruv. So this is like similar to an Eruv. Well, you have to put like a lechi or a korah. If this was like a street between them, you'd have to go and make an Eruv and then put a lechi or a korah. Right? You'd have to put a lechi or korah on the wall, on the edge of the opening. So in order to remind them that in a regular case, not in a water case, in a regular case, they'd have to go ahead instead of a lechi or korah. So we say put up a little stick over here as a reminder that it's not enough to just go ahead and draw your water. Normally, a shared space would be more problematic, and therefore that would be sufficient over here because of the fact that we're dealing with water. Have a great day.